It doesn't come quickly. Where do we find that? We bring it. Sometimes it could be an ikuf, be withheld. Where do we see that? So an example for that is Rosh Hashanah and the whole year. Rosh Hashanah we daven, and the Eibishter gives us a ksiva chsima toiva, and he writes down everything that we're supposed to get for the whole year, but it might stay in Atzilus. What happens at Rosh Hashanah, chesed of Atzilus, Hashem takes from chesed Atzilus and brings it down to Malchus Atzilus and sets aside for each person his portion for that year. But I will not gain anything living in Olam HaAsiyah Gashmi if my bank account is sitting in Atzilus. I have to be able to reach into the bank account and get my hashpah. How do we accomplish that? So that's what this whole mimer is about. The mimer is going to explain us why do we have to daven every day, and in addition to what we daven at Rosh Hashanah. Of course, not to forget to mention that this shiur, like all the shiurim that we give here, are l'schus le'ilui nishmas Miriam Bas Ephraim Ze'ev. Havana Yeridas Hanashama Lamata, which is the greatest aliyah. The Karv Mamsh. And also not to forget, the Deilat Tzedakah Shmekareves Hagula. It's always good to connect learning Torah B'chlal B'frat in the 9 days, Tziyim B'mishpat Yipada, B'shaver B'tzedakah, to learn and to give tzedakah. So what takes place? Why can't it come down from Malchus to Atzilus and give me a piece of bread on my table? What's the problem? So the Rebbe explains that the Hamshacha has to go through a din mishpat by every stage of the game. That means as it goes down from Malchus to Atzilus, it goes down to Bria, then it has to go down to Yetzira, then it has to go down to Asiya, and then Asiya Gashmi, and come down to all the things that I need. And for each step, there's a din mishpat to see if the person deserves it, that it should make its way down. In order to understand it better, the Rebbe told us a mashal for Nefesh HaAdam. Because Be'emesim, we have to understand. B'chlalos, the Rebbe said that when it comes Rosh Hashanah, the Eibishter gives us b'chlalos. Every day of the year, when you daven, it's to bring it down the pratios. Yishav Barech Aleinu, Yefa'enu, the details. Well, what do you need that for? It says in L'Kutei Torah, from Agos Maimonides, that on Rosh Hashanah, the Eibishter decides also the details. And the portion the Eibishter sets aside for every yid is not for the part of the neshama that's in Atzilus, that's Lamaila. It's for the neshama down here. So why is it that we need a separate tefillah to bring it down from Chesed of Atzilus down to this world, down to here? If on Rosh Hashanah was already decided that I'm going to have my piece of bread on my table, the details, why isn't that enough from Rosh Hashanah that I should just get it every day of the week? For that, the Rebbe brought us a mashal. When a person does anything, it goes through 4 stages. It goes through Seichel, Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa. What does that mean? Seichel is, I first think about it if it makes sense. Imroi la'asos. Does it make sense to do it? Once my Seichel gives a green light, it's ready to go to the next stage. What's going to happen on the next stage? Nobody knows yet. Al pi seichel, it makes sense. But what I'm going to do at Bepoel Mamash, that's another thing. Now, we're saying there are 4 levels. Seichel, Machshava, Dibur, Maisa. Isn't Seichel also Machshava? Yes. But there, Machshava is a Mesharis, like a servant for the Seichel. The main thing that's being emphasized here is the Seichel Shabbatava. Then, once the Seichel agrees, then it says, okay, let's try to put it to action. Let's see what happens. So it goes to Machshava, it goes to Dibur, and then it goes to Maisa. So it's 4 steps, actually. Rosh Hashanah only takes care of the first step. That from Chesed to Atzilus, it's decided that it goes to Malchus to Atzilus. But then it has to come down to Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, which the dogma of this is Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa. Just like from Seichel, it needs 3 more stages. The same thing is with the Hashpah. Machshava is Olam HaBriya, Dibur is Olam HaYetzira, and Maisa is Olam HaAsiya. To come down into action. So what Rosh Hashanah does, it just gives the okay, like when a person, Al Pi Seichel, decides, yes, it makes sense to do such a thing. Whether I'm going to do it or not, we don't know yet. Wait till it gets processed by my own Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa, whether I'm ready to do it or not. In other words, it's not compelling because my Seichel agrees with it. Not just agrees to the Inyan, agrees for the Maisa, mamish for the Maisa. But it does not yet mean that it's coming down. Because there are 2 things that can stand in the way on each level. Like I said last time, it's like customs. 2 things. Number 1, should it make it down from Malchus to Atzilus to Bria? That should go down to the next step. Number 2, when it goes down to the next step, what, in other words, that it comes to my machshava from the seichel that says it's a good idea, and my machshava, whether to do it or not, it could be I'll get a red light. Custom say, no, you're not going. Dafkanished. In other words, there's no proof once it's at seichel that it's going to come down to machshava dibur maisa. My machshava might say no, even though Al Pi Seichel makes sense. Machshava says no, I'm not doing it for whatever reason. Then from machshava to dibur, you have the same problem. Machshava to dibur is another stage, another step. So even though machshava says okay, but should I bring it up to dibur? Maybe not. In other words, should I reveal what I have in machshava? And the same thing from dibur to maisa. That's what we learned last week. That machshava, dibur, and maisa, each one is a stage of its own, another level, and therefore we need a separate din v'cheshben, a din u'mishpat, whether it should go to the next step. That's what we learned last week. Now we're up to page 92, Seif Vav. Then, if Zomabim Shalom Maila, now we'll understand in the Nim Shalom Maila, when we're talking about the Hashpah that has to come down, Rosh Hashanah and the whole year. What is that? In Al-Sif Beis. All it does is it brings it from all the way up from Chesed down to Malchus of Atzilus. Nothing more. Just to Atzilus. Now, when we want to compare Nasa Adam B'Tzalmeinu Kidmuseinu, what about us represents Atzilus, and what about us represents the Oilmis under it, B'Riya Yetzira Nasiya. Atzilus is Seichel Amidas, Esses Vidas. Yedua, Shatzilus Ubiyah, in Dugmas, Koiches Pnimi, Seichel Amidas, Begin Mulalavushim, Achshab Dibur Maisa. Atzilus and B'Riya Yetzira Nasiya correspond to Koiches Pnimiyim, Seichel Amidas in Atzilus. And then comes the three worlds that correspond to Machshava Dibur Maisa. V'lachein, and therefore, Av Shahadinu Mishpat Shebereish Hashanah, B'Yom HaKippurim, who? B'negei al Hashpah B'Yom HaGashmi, even though the Hachlata Reish Hashanah is not that I should get something Beruchnius, no, that I should get Hashpah B'Gashmius, B'Yom HaGashmi. V'lachein, Mikol Makom, Ki v'sheklolos ha'atzilus, Gam ha'malchus ha'atzilus, Hu dugmas keiches ha'pnimiyim, Shalamayim imachshav dibur ma'aseh. What is Atzilus? Dugmas keiches pnimiyim. My keiches pnimiyim are higher than my levushim. The keiches pnimiyim are much closer to my nefesh. It's like the levushim achshav dibur ma'aseh is like a beged. You put on, you take off. You can't put on and take off your seichel amidas, your meichen amidas. That is their concept. It's part of your nefesh. The same thing in Atzilus. Iv v'chayo yichad, iv v'garma yichad. The Eidis, the Kalim, with Elokus, they're all one. It's El Ha'achtos. So over there in Atzilus, it's b'dugma seichel amidas by a person. It does not yet reach machshava dibur ma'aseh. They're higher than machshava dibur ma'aseh. And therefore, when Atzilus decides that this person should get a piece of bread, it's all in the level of seichel. On that level of seichel, Atzilus agrees that it should come, that person should have bread. But bread weight is in Atzilus. Aksiva v'achsim etevish v'reish shana v'yom kippurim sheyum shach shefa gashmi. Even though there is a decision that a person should have a shefa gashmi, where in oil mazeh gashmi on my gashmi stick table, but still he dugmas hachlotas haseichel sheroi lehadav olasei. We said that there are two levels of this machshava. The first machshava is only that roi, it's befitting, it's a good idea to do. We're not talking about applying it practically. Roi hadav olasei. Sha'amaiseh k'moishu v'achlotas haseichel kolul be'haseichel. The maisa, the piece of bread, is still lofty. Yes, it's designated to become a piece of bread, but it's still on the level of seichel, still on the level of atzilus. Ubechdei shetumshach hashpa ba'elam ha'asiyah. In order that this hashpa should come down to elam ha'asiyah, ubefrat elam hazeh gashmi, tzricha liyos tchila hamshacha ba'elam ha'machshava b'riya, has to come from Malchus Atzilus, go down to the practical worlds, which are b'riya, yitzira, nasiyah. Ba'elam ha'machshava b'riya, And then it could come to Asiya. That's what he's saying. What has to happen? The ruchnistic level of this piece of bread has to come down to Machshava and to Bria, then to Dibur Yetzira, and then it could come down to Maise, to Eilam Asiya Gashmi. But that's all after the Eibishter is designated on Rosh and Kippur that here, this Chesed, Atzilus, is going on to Malchus, but it's still all on the level of Atzilus. It has to come down to Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. How do we accomplish this? By davening every day. Why? Because there's an ikuf. Between each level, before it goes to the next level, there's an ikuf. It's being withheld. Why is it being withheld? Does the person deserve it? Does the person deserve to get it? Yes, he deserved it. But whether he deserves that should be materialized and come down to Mateh Mamash, you need a separate judgment going through customs again. Because each world is a world apart of the other. It's a different world. Not only Atzilus to Bria, that for sure. Even Bria to Yetzira, Yetzira to Asiya, they're different worlds. So it needs a special justification to make it to the next level. Let's look inside. It must get stopped. There's an ikov. It gets withheld, but where? B'shnei inyanim hanal. The two things that we mentioned earlier. Number one, whether it's going to make its way down to the next level. Number two, is it going to come down to all the pratim that we need? We're not talking about in a case when there is a limited hashpah, then it could go either for Bane, Chaya, or Mezayna. We're talking when you have enough for all three. But should it spread out on all the things? That's why you have Yud Beis Brachos. The 12 brachos that we got to say in Shemoneh Esrei, because these 12 brachos say in detail all the things that we need, and we're asking for it. And by asking for it, by davening for it, we get it. It's not saying we might get it. Davening accomplishes it. Now comes a question. Is there any such thing that when you daven for something, that it should not come down at all? Well, that depends. That's what the ikov is all about. That's why when you daven with the minyan, it's very important. I don't remember if I mentioned this. My Zayda, my father's father, Moshe Yehuda, said, you know why you have to daven with the minyan? Because then for sure your tefillah is accepted. Why? And he gives a mashal. Says a guy came to his friend. Reuven went to Shimon. He says, Shimon, I have no food for my family. I'm very poor. Shimon says, why don't you do what I do? I have a good eitzah. What's the eitzah? I have a machine in my basement, and I print money, counterfeit. Come to my basement, I'll give you a pile. He's so happy, he comes, he gets a pile of printed dollar bills. He runs to the supermarket, and he's so happy. Now I'm going to be able to be rich and be able to have a lot of food for my family, just like Shimon does. And he fills up his cart and brings it to the cashier. When it comes time to pay, cashier says $15. He pulls out from his pocket 15 counterfeit bills and gives it to him. The cashier starts screaming at him. You bring me false money, counterfeit, I'll call the police. And with embarrassment, and the guy ran out of the store. Ran back to his friend. He says, you caused me the biggest embarrassment. He says, what happened? I went to the store and they threw me out head first. Tell me what you did exactly. I filled up my cart. I had to pay them $15. And I took $15 of what you gave me and I paid them. It says, Shoita, it's not what you do. It's not how you use it. Let me teach you how to use it. When I go to the store, I take most of the money is real money, and then I slip in 1 or 2 counterfeit bills. And the cashier starts counting the money. They look all real. So even though one of them looks fake, or he lets everything through. But you're coming only with counterfeit. What do you expect? My Zayda said that's the same thing. A Yid comes to shul. He joins a group of Yidden together. It gets a new koyach. Hein kel kabir lo yimas. The Eibishter does not despise the tefillas of a rabbin, of a tzibur. Why? Because they created tzibur. What is tzibur? Rosh Tevis, Tzadik Beis Vavreish, Tzadikim Beininim Urushaim. It's a achdus. Bring everyone together. And then the Eibishter says, everyone goes. But if I daven myself without a minyan, then they say, hey, who are you? Are you for real? Are you counterfeit? You have the right kavanas. Are you doing what you should do? So they start examining me under the spotlight. Uh-oh. I'd rather not. I'd rather go to a minyan. That's what Mezeda told me. The inyan of davening with tzibur is very powerful. But the Eibishter Shemei Tfilas kol peh. Every single yid, wherever he is, can daven to Hashem. You don't have to be in shul, especially women who are not mechuyev to go to shul. Their tefillas go straight up, without a shayla. Talking about men who are supposed to have a minyan, that's what accomplishes. Now there's another category, and that is bracha. There's tefillah, and there's bracha. What's the difference between tefillah and bracha? The person goes to the Rebbe and asks for a bracha. And you know that sometimes the Rebbe gives the bracha, and sometimes we know stories where the Rebbe just doesn't answer. Why not? Because the Rebbe doesn't have. So it's explained in Chassidus. The word bracha is Melashon Hamshacha, to bring down. When a person deserves something, the Eibishter already decided this person is going to have children, this person is going to have a shidduch, this person is going to have parnasa, whatever it is. Sometimes you need a bracha to schlep it down. Just like we're talking about now, about davening to materialize it, to bring it down. That's bracha. In davening, there's something else altogether. It's much stronger than bracha. Tefillah, we say Yehi Ratzain, to create a new Ratzain that wasn't even created on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim. Tefillah is Yehi Ratzain, Memachtuf Hanaya Ratzain. You're creating a new Ratzain B'Hashem for a new Hashpah. Now let's talk about the Birkas Kainim for a moment. Birkas Kainim, we said that's the whole yesod of this mimer, is Ad Meheri Yoretz Tevara. That different than Tefillah of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and every single day there could be an ikuv, whether it should come down all the way to Olam Hazeh, When it comes to Birkas Kayanim, it's been Mehirus. And that's why it's represented. Mateh Aron was represented by the Shkedim. Shkedim is Mehirus, quick. And that's what the Rebbe is going to talk about in the next Seif, Zion. Because here comes a question. Why do we have an equal between Atzilus and Bria, Tzira? We explain, because just like Nefesh HaAdam. Nefesh HaAdam, from Seichel to Machshava to Dibra, it has to go through with stages, and it needs justification. It needs a push to go from one level to the next. So how does Birkas Kayanim manage to be the Mehidus? And it's not the Pshat. Birkas Kayanim skips all the levels, and it just jumps from Atzilus straight down to Asiyah. No! It goes through all the Eilamais. It makes it through, and when it comes to customs, there are no one stopping him. Just runs through the customs. There's nothing withholding. There's no equal when it comes to Birkas Kayanim. How do you explain it? Tefillah, we understand there's equal. Makes sense. How come at Birkas Kayanim not? That's what we're going to learn now in Seif Zion. The equal that can be. When it has to go from one level to the next, as long as the ratzon that I have to do this thing is all based on seichel. If it's based on seichel, my seichel is mugdal, is limited. And that's why, since it's limited, it has limitations. And one of the limitations is that it can't guarantee that from seichel it's going to make it down to asiyah, to action. Number one, I might decide not to do it, because it's all based on seichel. But there is another thing in Nefesh HaAdam that goes quickly into action. It does not take time. It doesn't go through Machshava, Dibra, Maisa. It goes through them, but there are no customs on the way. It goes straight down. Let's look inside. Masha'en came. Kishaharatzin who, not because of Seichel, if the Ratzin to do the object, to do the thing, the Fishi Yeshloi Tainug was he has a tainug. He has a pleasure in doing it. Because he has a tainug in it, ubefrat kishiyesh tainug atzmi shalamayla me'asechel. What's tainug? Tainug is something higher than sechel. Tainug is something with. Why do you enjoy it? I enjoy it. You listen to a beautiful piece of music. Why do you enjoy? I enjoy it. Al pi seichel, I can't explain al pi seichel. Ask a little kid, why do you like ice cream? He can't articulate why. He just knows he likes it. It's a tainug. When a person he wants to do something because it has a tainug in it, the tainug makes a mad rush. It just shoots down. It comes right down into action. It doesn't go through any customs. Nothing stops it. It goes mamish quick. Then it's filthy mugbal. There's no hakbala there. There is no hakbala whatsoever. It goes without any limit. Azai hamshacha meharotzin ad la'amaitzi hi b'mehirus. Then the hamshacha from ratzin till maisa is b'mehirus. B'li ikuv. The kisha'ayla b'ritzaynai. If it comes to his ratzon, l'mayla min ha-seichel, not because seichel justified it, but l'mayla min ha-seichel, that he wants it, hoyel ha-ratzon miyad al ha-seichel. Ratzon has an influence on the seichel, that seichel is not going to stand in the way. The seichel will agree. Sheyavin b'sichlei sheroi leitzes ba'adavar. If it all started in seichel, there's no major force pushing it down. But if it starts from a level higher than seichel, from tainug, from ratzon, then it has a major force and it goes quickly down. Seichel nimshach miyad. From seichel it comes straight down. These are the four levels. Goes to seichel, level 1. Then it goes to machshav, yad l'machshava, umei machshava l'dibur, umedibur l'maisa. Goes through all four levels quickly. B'chol amshachei seila heim b'mehirus v'liikos. They all come down quickly without any withholding. Mamish quick. So we see in Nefesh HaAdam, there's such a thing in Nefesh HaAdam that a person, he wants it mitzad ha-seichel, not mitzad ha-seichel. If he wants it only mitzad ha-seichel, then it has to be justified on each level. Why? Seichel is mugbal. So let's say the oir ha-seichel is mugbal, so it can't force its way through. It has to be judged on each level. Hasha'en came when it comes mitzad tainug, then it's a oir habli gvul, and therefore nothing can stop it. It's like a car speeding through customs at 100 miles an hour. That nothing can stop it. Ushnein yanim baser. We're at the next page, 93. Ushnein yanim baser. There are two things in this. Shala'achrei shehichlet b'sichlet klos ha'inyan einay tzarech li'syait v'ladoin imroi lachshev v'daber v'lasos. Once the person has mitzad tainu and he has the decision to do it, he doesn't have to reevaluate it. Am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? Like in the case when it started off from seichel, and he could change his mind. When it starts from tainug, there's no more reevaluation. Not only that, v'yiseidim shekol hamshachis elu. All of these hamshachis, me'aseichel la'machshava, me'amachshava l'dibur, u'medibur l'maisa, it's not something you have to schlep it down. You don't even need tefillah for it. It happens automatically. Automatically. It's like a domino effect. You just push the first domino, the rest will go. Because he has such a strong ratzin. And such a big tainik ba'davar, lo yishkoit v'lo yenuach ad sheyiya adavar b'maisa b'toil. Until we'll bring it out into action. In other words, I'm not resting until I get it done. Because I have a tainik in it. If only my seichel said so, okay, I can figure out ways to get out of it. But if it comes to mitzvah tainuk, and I really have a tainuk, like you said on the other page, tainuk atzmi, which is bleak vul, then it just goes, it happens. But here comes the question. Even though you're explaining the tainuk by a person, it pushes it through. How can you say that in the Olam Yisrael? You're saying because Kayanim, Comes straight down all the Elamis. There's no Ikov on the way. How? Taket. By a person, even his Tainug, how much higher is his Tainug than his Ratzon, than his Seichel? It's all one Nefesh of the same person. Even Machshava Dibur Maisa. You're saying there's an Ikov because they're different worlds. But how much of a different world is Machshava from Dibur to Maisa if you're talking about the same Nefesh? They're all basically near each other. They're all related. Same family. Yet, we say to go from one level to the next, there is an Ikov, reevaluation. Do I want to do it? Do I want to say it? Do I want to say what my machshava is? Now talk about the Maila. How can we say, even by Birkas Kayanim, that goes b'mehirus? Goes b'mehirus, it still has to go through customs. It has to change from Atzilus to Bria to another complete world, Yetzira, and to another world, Asiya, and Asiya Agashmi. It's going to make it through all of them. But how does it make it through? By Nefesh HaAdam, we said, because Tainug is an Erbli Gvul. It's like higher than your Shtalshus. That's why it can come all the way down. What's by Birkas Kayanim? That's what the Rebbe is going to say happens by Birkas Kayanim. There are two levels of Chesed. There's regular Chesed, and then there's Rav Chesed. Rav Chesed is L'mayla Mishtalshalus, L'mayla Mimedid V'Agbala, and that's where Birkas Kayanim comes from Rav Chesed. And that's why you can make it all the way through. The Mehiris. Let's look inside. The same thing is also by the Nimshal. We're talking L'mayla, the Kishishoy, the Sham Shacha, Umebichinis Rav Chesed, Shalamayla Mishtalshalus, Birkas Kayanim is from Rav Chesed. Higher than Mishtalshalus. Hazai, Nimsheches, Hashpa, Mateh. Al Yadei. It does go through all the Madregas. Al Yadei Adargis, the whole Seder Shtalshalus. But how does it go? B'mehirus, Gedoyla, Bali Ikuvim. No custom, no stopping off on the way. And the Rebbe says that it has two parts to this. Number one, that there is no new judgments on the way, should it go down further or not. But then another thing, that when it goes down, it goes automatically. In other words, it doesn't need additional pa'ula. It's like sliding down a mountain. Once you start sliding, you slide all the way. You don't need anyone to push you. The nice if lazeh. Sheba hamshach hatzu. Ein dinim sheyakfu. Hamshach is shemi madrega l'madrega. In addition to this, that by this kind of hamshach of Birkas Kayanim, there are no dinim, no judgments to hold back the hamshacha from one level to the next. Not only there's no one holding it back, but you have to put your foot on the pedal to accelerate. It says no. Once it starts moving, it moves on by itself. In a gamma hamshachos atzmam in ba'ofen de bederech memela. That explains V'zeu shehamshacha the Birkas Kayanim hi b'mehirus. Birkas Kayanim is quick, swift. Why? Ki hamshacha the Birkas Kayanim himel maila me'ishtalshalus. It's higher than ishtalshalus. K'mavur b'makom acher sheb'Birkas Kayanim is gama maila de tefila shal yidei atefila nimshich ratzin chadash shel maila me'ishtalshalus. Like I said before, there are two things. There's bracha and there's tefillah. Tefillah can sometimes reach Yehi Ratzain Milfanecha. So verin anaye Ratzen. Something l'mayla mishtalshalos. Person didn't deserve it, but accomplished through tefillah Yehi Ratzain. Bracha only brings down what is destined to come to the person. That's why it says by Yaakov Avinu, Ish kevirchasoi bein achaisam. What does it mean, kevirchasoi? Kevirchasoi, because everyone has a certain bracha that is designated and destined for this particular person, but it has to come down. So that's what bracha is, that it should be nimshach. Birkas Kayanim has both milas of bracha and of tefillah that it can pile in ratzin chodesh. Like he says, Kimavur b'makom acher. He brings it from a Maimer Tafresh Chavtes from the Rebbe Maharash, and that comes down to Lamata. V'lashchein ha'amshacha hi b'mehirus. That's why the Hamshacha of Birkas Kayanim is b'mehirus. What do we see from here? The Maila of Birkas Kayanim. The Maila of Birkas Kayanim, as later the Rebbe is going to explain the details. What's Yivarechacha, Yored Hashem, Yisa Hashem. Those are already details in the brachas and how they come down. But what the Rebbe the Ikar answered here, he gave us a mashal in Nefesh Adam to understand also the inyan from Birkas Kayanim. Because that's the whole inyan, the koyach that Kayanim have to bench Yidden. In Sefer Zechronos, the Friedrich Rebbe brings about tzaddik nestarim. They had different minhagim, different things. One of them, I think he himself was a kohen, and he said, "What's a taich? Levarech es Ama Yisrael ba'ava." The kohen, before they say Birkas Kayanim, they make a bracha. Sheikh and Shonim and Tzitz Tzvano, Levarech es Ama Yisrael ba'ava. To bench the Yidden ba'ava. What does the ba'ava mean? To bench them with love, which can have two taichim. This tzaddik nistar, I forgot his name, maybe Getzel, I don't remember his name. He said, besides the pashta taich, it means to bench the Yidden with an abundance of love, that they should have love to each other. They should have Ahavas Yisrael. That's Levarech Hasam Yisrael Be'ava. What do we take out from this in practical terms? The main thing is Ma'aseh B'Poel. We can think from today till tomorrow, we have to bring things into action. We're talking about the difference of something that's in Seichel or something that's in Tainuk. Gewaldige Ha'ira in Chinuch from this. What's that? Gewaldige Ha'ira. If I go over to a kid and say, let's learn a pasuk chumash, what am I going to get for it? What prize am I going to get? Can I get a candy? Can I get a bicycle? Says the Rebbe in a Sicha, Lekutei Sichas Chelik Tesvav, by Yeda Chav Chesed, that from the story of the Rebbe Rashab, that as a little kid of 5-6 years old, he was crying to a Zayda the Tzemach Tzedek, why Hashem did not appear to him, means that even a little kid can cry for Gilei Elokus. We're not emphasizing the word crying, emphasizing the desire for Gilei Elokus, not asking for Gashmi. Says the Rebbe that we can train children to love Hashem, to do mitzvahs. And even though the Rambam writes, you have to bribe the child, bidvarim ha'ahuvim etzlai. What does ha'ahuvim etzlai mean? Things that he loves. Says the Rebbe, you can be mechanech the kid He will love Elokus. He'll get a tainug. Explain him why Elokus is good. Tamu re'u kitay Hashem. Explain him why Elokus is good. Why learning a pasuk is good. Torah the best is chayra. Torah is the most precious thing. It's from Hashem. If you deliver it to the child with a smile, with an excitement, the child will pick it up. Then he'll have a tainug, and then you don't have to bribe him. And when you have a tainug, there's no ikuv on the way. Am I going to learn another pasuk or not? I'm not making up stories. I'm telling you from my own experience. Not that I'm at that level, but at least I was able to convince my class. I made an experiment, and I even took notes of it. I think I mentioned it already on this lesson, on the Zoom once, that I wanted to apply what the Rebbe says, practical application. Get the kids to love learning Torah for the sake of learning Torah. And how it works is a lot of details. But what I can say, a few weeks or months into the year, the principal will come in and tell the kids to read a few psukim and say, I'm going to give you now candy. They'll tell the principal, no thanks, we don't need it. And the principal will say, so what can I show? How can I show my appreciation? What did the kids say? Give us more psukim to learn. I'm not joking with you. It's a ma'aseh shahaya. The Rebbe's words are emes. And the Rebbe says that the teacher has to be convinced. Because the kids see through and through the teacher. I just heard of a very cute mashal of chinuch. Because the Rebbe says the best way and the only way to really accomplish in chinuch, if you show an example. All the speeches and all the lectures and all the bribes, put that aside, just show an example. And the Rebbe says you have to be mehader in that thing that you want to accomplish. The kid will see you really mean it. So I heard a beautiful mashal for this. A guy traveled to Italy to buy hats. He was a merchant, and he picked up 30 hats and took them with him. And he had to go from one place to the next. He had to walk through a forest, carrying a big bundle of 30 hats. He got tired on the way, so he sat down near a tree, and he put his head back, and he fell asleep. When he woke up, his hats are gone. He thought maybe a thief robbed them, took it away. But he looks up in the tree, he sees 30 monkeys on the tree wearing the hats. How am I going to get the monkeys to throw it down? So right away, he started to wave his hands to the monkeys and got their attention and said, throw him down. And he's showing with his hand, throw him down, throw him down. What did the monkeys do? Start waving their hands. They didn't throw the hat down. They kept it on their heads. They just copied him. Monkey see, monkey do. They put the hands, waving the hands. He got upset. So he stood up and raised both hands, showing, throw it down, throw it. All the monkeys stood up on the branches and used both hands to show, motioning the same motion that he's doing. He got so upset. He sat down and took his own hat off and threw it on the floor out of anger. Suddenly, what did all the monkeys do? They sat down and threw off their hats onto the floor. Monkey see, monkey do. It's a nice mashal, whether it happened or not. But the lesson is what the kids see in the parents or the teachers. That's what counts. I could tell the kids from today to tomorrow, I'm a zakt habracha, say a bracha clearly. Say a bracha, say the words. And then the kid sees Rebbe walks into the room and picks up a glass of water, how does the Rebbe say it? Rebbe doesn't mumble. He says the word slowly and clearly. Baruch atah Hashem. The kid sees that he practices what he preaches. And then the kids will do the same. Nothing more powerful. One act is better than 1,000 lessons. One more thing I want to add. Hey, Yois, we're in the 3 weeks, and we're talking about the Inyan, what the Rebbe wants us to learn in Yonei Beis HaBechira. Since we have another minute or two, I would like to throw in a word from the Rebbe. It says the Beis HaMikdash Hashlishi is Banui Meshuchlal Mikdash Hashem Keinunu Yadecha. It's in Shemayim. In other place it says in Rambam that one of the things Mashiach will do v'yivna Beis HaMikdash b'mkayim, that he's going to build a Beis HaMikdash. Question is, who's building the third Beis HaMikdash? Bnei Yisrael or HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And there are many answers to explain it. To explain that it is taka both. There's a way it's both going to happen. We're not going to all the details. But one of the answers that the Rebbe gives, it says in Eicha, one of the things that happened during the Churban, Tav'u ba'aretz she'oreha, the gates of the Beis HaMikdash, we know that there were gates, they sank into the ground. The Pasha got swallowed up into the ground. The rest of the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Why did they wish to do that? Why did they wish to make such a miracle? David doesn't do a miracle for nothing, in vain. The answer is as follows. There is a halacha that if I go to a no man's land, I go to a wilderness, a desert, and I build up a beautiful palace, but I did not put on the doors. I didn't put the doors up, but I build up everything else. Somebody else comes and puts up the doors. Who do you think becomes the owner of that palace? The second guy. Why not me? I put up all. The reason is, Chazal say, yeah, he just put some stones together. He didn't acquire it. It's a makim hefker. You need a chazaka. You need a certain pa'ula. What does the pa'ula? Putting up the doors. Says the Rebbe, Mashiach is going to come, and the Beis HaMikdash, Mikdash Adnik and Yidach is coming down, Yerushalayim, it's going to be missing the doors, the gates. It's coming down without gates. What are the Yidden going to do? The Eibishter doesn't want that the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi should belong to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Shemayim up there. They have to become under the ownership of Bnei Yisrael. How does it become? Of course, even down here it belongs to the Eibishter. Hashem Aretz Malaya. But the Eibishter wants the Yidden to take ownership. But it's Nasan Livnei Adam. How? That's why the Eibishter put the gates to be swallowed up in the ground. When the Beis HaMikdash comes down, without the gates are going to rise out of the ground and be attached to the Beis HaMikdash, making it complete. And whose gates? Bnei Yisrael. Who becomes the owners? Bnei Yisrael. Comes our Beis HaMikdash. So they should help him. We should talk to the Korv Mamish. We should be Zeicha to the Geula Shlema, and we'll be able to have Tchias HaMeisim. Number one, we'll see Miriam Bas Ephraim Sa'id participate. Hopefully, she'll give the Shiurim, the Gashmias. And Rapinya Korf passed away in Parshas Pinchas. Like, amazing thing. Unfortunately, I'm sure he wouldn't mind to wait till Matas Maseh. or not even Matasmasi, another 120 years. The Eibishter will give him, since he just left, it's quicker to come back. The road back is quicker. I can testify to that, as you know. So the Eibishter will help him that all of us should be gesund and stark, Arichas Yom V'Shalom Tovos, Parnasa Bar Chava, and we should have Ad Meheira Yorud